Hi, I'm Eric. We are now on day number 28 of our game development journey. So I decided today that I would create a mock scene that shows what our final gameplay might look like. Let's turn off all this visual, all these circles. There we go. So this is kind of a visualization of how we imagine the final gameplay to look like. This is like an action scene that was paused in real time, and you can kind of like move around and see all the different action that's happening. So we've got a couple different bombers flying up here on the top, and these guys are dropping these parachuters who are coming down onto the battlefield. We've got the player-controlled airplane, which is shooting bullets at this airplane over here, and this airplane over here is dropping a bomb onto these infantry down here. These blue infantry are shooting at this squad of red infantry down here, and behind the blue infantry we've got two tanks which are going to be engaging these two tanks over here. By these two tanks over here, we've got a defensive anti-tank turret that is ready to engage these tanks over here, and we've got an anti-aircraft turret over here which is getting ready to shoot down these bombers and other aircraft coming up by. On the red side we've also got an aircraft which is shooting his bullets at this bomber, and we've also got parachuters being dropped by these bombers out here. And way in the back we've also got some additional heavy mechanized armor that's moving onto the battlefield. We've got a anti-aircraft gun that is shooting bullets at all this air unit stuff over here. And we've got three different howitzer cannons in the back ready to provide fire support for the units on the front line. In the back we've also got a howitzer that's ready to provide fire support for these other guys. Then we've also got a land crawler over here which is going to be just slowly driving into the battlefield. We've also got a first pass, or maybe actually this is actually a second pass at the clouds. These are not going to be the final product that makes it into the game, but it's getting a little closer to what the final game is going to look like. We also don't really have much of a sky dome yet, so we don't really get an idea on what the external sky looks like. We also don't really have lighting ready to go yet, so you don't see what everything is going to look like with complete lights. And we also do not have the complete landscape texture down yet, so we've still got some placeholder assets. But this does give us a pretty good idea on what the final game is going to kind of feel like. This also gives us an idea on what kind of things also still need to be worked on, so this is going to be something that we can check in on from time to time and see how this action scene changes as development progresses. This also does not have explosions in action, because those would be kind of like particle effects that would be hard to freeze frame in time. So yeah. Today I also spent time working on the animations for the land crawler, so let's just jump right in there and take a look at how that works. We have actually let's back up just a tad. So with our land crawler we've got a whole bunch of different animations that can be played. So we can look at our thing over here that closes the gun hatches. We also have something that opens the front door, and this is where units will spawn out and kind of like fly down onto the battlefield, or actually they won't fly, but they'll drive out on the battlefield. We also have a lift gate in the back which does this little action, and this will bring your airplane out of this little nook over here and put it onto the runway ready for the player to fly. And then let's see, we also have the wheels that are turning, and I think that's everything for the animation. So as you notice, we've got a whole bunch of separate animations that play different parts of this unit. So somehow we need to combine them all together and play them when different, I guess, states are in effect. So you only want the lift to play when there's an airplane that needs to be pulled out onto the runway, and you only want to open up the front door when there's a unit that's ready to be spawned. There's going to also be some logic on when this howitzer hatchery needs to open up. So yeah, the challenge is going to be figuring out how to combine them all together. So what we have is our animation blueprint, and let's see, I ended up creating an animation graph which does a whole bunch of layered blending, and we can blend by the bone. So I took all of those different animations and I created state machines for each one of them, and then I took the animation state and I fed it into this layered bone node, and then this thing creates the final output animation. So what's really cool about this is you can have a whole bunch of separate animations that are being played only for a bone in its hierarchy, and it can be played, and you can merge these different animations to create a really cool animation. So for example, you could have somebody walking, and you could have the walking animation, and then they could be using their right hand to wave at you, and that would be a separate animation. And using this layered blend, you could play both of those animations at once instead of playing one and then playing the other. So I'll show you how I set up my state machines. This is actually pretty neat. So this is going to be a very simple loop that is based off of these three Boolean values. So in the case of, let's see, this is the cannon. So we're going to be looking at this piece right here. All we do is we toggle a Boolean value on and off, and this will switch from different states to another. So let's see a demo of that really quick. I turn it on, our hatch opens, now we're in the idle open state. I turn it off, then we go into closed state, and as soon as it finishes, it goes back into the idle closed. So we can just turn this on and off by checking this checkbox on and off, and that's pretty neat. What's interesting is this is all using one animation. So if you look here, we've got our open animation, but it's actually set its play rate to 0, and it is not looping. And then once we activate the Boolean value, this is the state transition. Once this is true, then we go into open hatch, and then we play the opening animation, and this is very straightforward. We just turn off the looping animation, and I also set the play rate to 0.1 instead of 1 because I thought the animation was going a little bit too fast. But once this completes, we look at the ratio of the animation sequence, and once it reaches like 99%, then we transition into the next animation state, which is just the idling open state. And here I set the start position to be 10, which is the very last frame of the animation, and I set the play rate to 0. And I also turned off looping. So this means that the hatch will stay open until we actually transition out of it. And then as soon as we set our Boolean value to off, then we want to enter into the transition of closing the hatch. So here we start at the very end because that's where the open state is, and then we are going to play this in reverse. And For the play rate, all we do is play at that minus 0.1. So we're going to start at this side and we're going to go in this direction. And then we also turn off looping. And once we have completed that animation to 99%, then we transition into the close state. So, just a really quick demo of that again. Turn it on, goes into the open hatch. Now it's in the idle. Turn it off. It starts closing, and it completes, and it goes into the idle closed state. And we do that for all three of these. So you can see the same state machine for the lift, and the same for the front door. And at the same time, we've also got the wheels constantly spinning based off of the movement speed. And I set a default value of 0.3, so they will constantly be spinning, but we can also increase or decrease the movement rate of the wheels. So theoretically, if you open up the front door, you can turn off the movement speed until you're ready to move again. So I bound the different states to different key presses on my keyboard within the level blueprint just for testing. So if we open up the level blueprint, we can see how I tested this. And if we hit play, you can see our unit is actually moving and nothing is animating. But if I hit the number 1 key, our lift in the back raises, and it goes into its raised idle position. If I hit the 1 key again to toggle it back down, it goes back down to its down position. And then for our howitzer hatch, we can push the 2 button and then it opens up, and then our howitzer will deploy out of here. And likewise, we can toggle it to go back down. And then for the front door, it's very straightforward, same concept. And that is it for the animation for this unit. It's interesting to note that getting the animation to be functional for this was much easier than going into the blueprint and doing all this manually, as I had been doing for the prototype. So I ended up deleting a whole bunch of stuff, and I used to have a whole bunch of timelines for moving all these different pieces of this actor, and it was getting kind of messy. So we have like this hydraulic lift timeline. If you open this up, we've got different graphs, and it's just ugh. So by going to the animation system, this is actually much simpler. Anyway, that's it for today. It's a very short and simple video with a bit of an educational component on how to do the animations. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.